Welcome to Spotlight LGBTQ. The mission of Spotlight LGBTQ is to provide a safe space for networking, learning, and sharing of information and resources. Don't be scared. Join the discussion. Click the link in the caption to join the live or simply leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I am me. Let's go.
Good evening, everyone. We are back. It's Spotlight Monday. Dion, aren't you excited?
Excited is
Ah,
not the word. I'm,
well, listen.
I'm abundant. I have abundance of energy tonight.
Uh,
Um,
well, look, we got to introduce ourselves because we are on multiple pages and we probably got some new viewers. Hi, everyone. My name is Pierce McCoy, president and founder of I Am Me, and I am with Mr. Hill.
I
Go
am
ahead and introduce yourself.
Dion M. Hill, and I am the public liaison of IME, and I'm also the chair of the legislative committee.
Yeah, so if you check us out, imecorp.org. So listen, before we begin, because we have some very special guests, I need y'all to take a moment and share this live. Share it everywhere. If you're on YouTube watching, take the link, share with your friends, inbox them, however. You got to get someone on tonight because this information I couldn't wait for this organization to come on Spotlight. I am excited. I don't know about you, Dion, but excited.
I'm excited because I'm here because this is one that I wanted to be here for, and I know that you're excited because when you spoke to these people, this organization, a little over a month ago, you put in our group chat like, yes, like this is something we need to, this is who we need to talk to, and so I'm fired up, so I'm just ready.
All right, so let us bring on our guests. They're from Collage nonprofit. I'll let them introduce themselves because I don't want to butcher it. Let everybody do their thing.
Sure, not good with
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Well,
Hello.
my name is Angel, and I use they, them pronouns, and I am the National Program Director at Colage.
Yeah. And I am Justice. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am the communications director at Collage.
All right. Well, we didn't even tell our pronouns. What's your pronouns, Dion?
I am he and his.
And
I am a
I
senior male.
Okay, and I am she, her, they, whatever you want to throw in the mix. I'm fine as long as I'm alive. But yeah, we are so excited to have y'all here. I've been waiting for this for like 3 weeks. I'm like, when is this happening? But it's finally here, and I just love your organization. So my first question is, what is collage? Like, what is collage? I know what it is, but tell everybody else what it is.
Go ahead, Justice.
Yeah. So, Collage is the only national organization that seeks to empower people with one or more LGBTQIA plus parent, guardian, or caregiver. And I don't know if Angel
Oh.
wants to give a little bit more about the history, just a brief summary.
Yeah, I'm down to give some more history. So basically, Collage started as a group of young adults, and they were at a gay dads convening in 1990. And so the young adults, the kids of these dads, broke off and formed their own group. And originally, they named it Just for Us because they wanted a space just for the kids of LGBTQ parents. And then a couple years later, it was named Collage, which originally stood for Children of Lesbians and Gays Everywhere. And then a couple years later, they got rid of that acronym to include people who have bisexual, transgender, and queer parents, so the whole LGBTQ acronym. But we kept the name. So I think of it as Children of LGBTQ people everywhere. And yeah, and we have programming for not just kids though, for also for adults, adult kids of LGBTQ parents.
Oh wow.
So where did your organization began? Where did it start at?
I believe it was on the West Coast,
Hmm.
but apologize if I got that fact wrong. Um,
Yeah, I believe
I
that.
know we had a headquarters in Seattle for a while, but now we actually don't have a headquarters. We are completely remote, and that wasn't even because of COVID. That happened before COVID, and we probably always will be 100% remote because our staff, we only have 4 full-time staff, but we live all along the East Coast. That's how it happens to be right now. We have someone in Providence, New York City, Philly, and DC, um, and yeah, and that's how it works. But we do meet in person a couple times a year for events.
Oh
Okay.
wow. Wow.
Okay.
I think that's so cool. So basically, I mean, I guess because of the way that you are, you can reach more people being, not located in a building space. But so I was on your website, right? And I love terms. I'm a terms person. I love all LGBT terms. I don't know why. I always pick up on them. And I saw something on there and it said queer spawn. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this a noun, an adjective? Like queer spawn. What is queer spawn?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, queer spawn is anybody who has an LGBTQIA plus parent. We, when some people may have reservations about the term just because of the negative association with the word queer, but we kind of see it as us reclaiming that word and showing how proud we are to have, an LGBTQIA plus parent.
Okay.
Yeah, and not everyone uses it though, not everyone who has LGBTQ parents identifies with that word. A lot of us do, but not everyone does. Personally, I identify with that word. I have a queer mom who came out when I was about 4 years old. So my mom and dad were married, and they had my brother and I. And then when I was about 4, my mom came out as lesbian, and my mom and dad got a divorce. And I actually grew up going to collage programming. My mom found out about collage a couple of years later. And yeah, and I love the word queer spawn. I learned about it as a kid, and I've identified as queer spawn ever since. And Justice also grew up in programming, and we met in programming when we were kids.
Yep.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I have two lesbian moms, and I was adopted when I was 9 months old. And so I found out about collage at a very young age because one of my mothers was super heavily involved in collage. Um, so she kind of just brought me to programming because she was already doing collage stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to go or not. But the second I got into programming, it was it was an incredible experience because I had never met anybody who had a similar family structure to mine. And then all of a sudden, I was in a room filled with people who had something either identical to what I had or something very similar. So,
Wow.
Okay. I have a question. So, basically, okay, one person you were four, and you basically were from adopted as before you can actually even other than roll around. Um, my question being growing up in the with the LGBT family, a unit, how did that affect? Did you have any type of situations with other children, um, like asking or even if it was positive or negative, like can you talk about that as growing up as a child and dealing with other children? Because I know for a fact that children can be very cruel, and a lot of times it comes from their ignorance and their ignorance that's put on from their families. So if you can discuss that a little bit, if
Yeah,
you may.
yeah.
totally.
Do you want to go,
Yeah,
Angel?
yeah, sure.
Ladies
Um,
first,
so
please.
I grew up in a really conservative area of Connecticut. And it was like very Christian, white, homogenous, conservative. Basically like everyone in my area voted for Trump in both elections. So that's kind of like the place that I grew up. And we were kind of closeted as a family because my mom herself was closeted for a while, for safety reasons. It really did not feel safe to be out as lesbian, and for me to be out about my family having a lesbian mom. But um, people would find out, and my close friends would find out because um, they would come to my house and they would see that my mom had a female partner, or I would tell them before they came over just to get their reaction before they kind of like entered my household. And a lot of my friends were cool with it, like the ones that were really close with me, I think because they loved me no matter what, and they then grew to love my mom too, even if they had preconceived notions of what being gay meant. But I definitely faced a lot of bullying, and intrusive and offensive questions about my family. And I have this vivid memory of um, this girl who grew up evangelical, and she was in the locker room, and she was just like kept saying over and over and over again to me, like, it was Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, like that's so wrong, like. And I know that's like such a cliche, but it's like when you are in sixth grade, it's like terrible, it's like so terrible to hear over and over again, and it invalidates your parents and the people who raise you, and who love you and who you love.
Yeah, and I would say I kind of had a very opposite experience to that. My parents were very strategic about where we moved. They did something that I like to call the playground test. They wore the absolute gay shirts that they could find, and then put me on the playground and like watched how other people interacted with me. So in areas where people like actively moved their kids away from me, my parents were like, okay, we're not going to move there. um, so we ended up moving to this. Where I'm originally from Rhode Island, so it's a really small place. And then, the towns in Rhode Island are even smaller. So we moved to this town called Cranston, and I had a really positive experience growing up. Uh, I was never bullied. Like, I don't even think one time for having two moms. I was, however, like asked a lot of questions. Um, they weren't necessarily intrusive, but they did get annoying after a while because people like like they just always wanted to talk about it. I think like the most intrusive question though I ever got was in like sixth, or I was in like seventh grade, and people were like, "So do your moms have sex?" And I was like,
Oh,
"I mean, yes, but like I don't want to talk about that. Like, thank you." Um,
Yeah, and like straight parents don't get that
All I,
question. Like, of course they don't get that question because that's the norm and everyone just knows what that means. But that happens a lot to queer spawn. I feel like, Justice, your experience is very common.
yeah, yeah.
oh my goodness. That.
I don't want to know if
I
anybody's
know.
parents is having sex.
I
It's,
know.
Yeah,
it's this.
and when you're like in
Oh
third
my
grade,
god.
like why should we
Third
have to
grade.
talk about that?
Ah,
Yeah.
oh god. See, to follow up on that, and thank you for that, because I know that's really personal. But th- is this is was this something that your parents like talk to you like if something like justice you had positive but you had negative, was it something like these conversations that you would have with your parents, and how would they like things, because I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah. Well, again, it's different for everyone. For me,
Yeah,
um and this is also a pretty common phenomenon in our community, but I wouldn't share the bullying and the questions that I got to my mom because I wanted to protect her. And I knew that she was already having such a hard time, being out in a really terrible area. And I didn't want her to worry about me and feel like it was her fault because of her identity. So I kept a lot of that to myself, which was isolating and hard. And a lot of us do that. A lot of collagers do that. Um, but like she other than that, she would talk about it, and she would ask me how it was going, and she would talk about um, how she felt closeted and didn't want to be, but felt like it was her only choice. And the woman she was dating at the time, who was kind of my step parent was way more out than she was. She actually was from Rhode Island, ironically. So maybe Rhode Island is the place where we all need to move. But she came to Connecticut and lived with us, and I think she wasn't used to being in that really conservative area and was kind of shocked by how closeted my mom was for a while. And my mom's not closeted anymore, and I'm not obviously closeted about my family anymore because I work in this job. But yeah.
Oh wow, wow. I was gonna ask that. At any point in your life, did you kind of hide your family situation? But you just answered that. What about you, Justice? Did you hide your situation for a while, just to give yourself like that safe space while being in school or in other spaces?
Yeah, I say that I still sometimes do that in areas where I haven't been before and don't necessarily know how to gauge the people yet. Like, I will, if I'm able to talk to people individually, I have a much better kind of wherewithal about where they stand on those issues, um, or just my situation. But I definitely am very selective about when I disclose that information because it's personal to me, and also I feel like I don't owe anybody an explanation for it. So yeah, I would say yeah. Like, and even in the nature of like discussing what I do for work, sometimes I tell people about Collage. I'm like, it's this really great organization for people with an LGBTQIA plus parent. And other times I'm just like, no, I work for a nonprofit that does social advocacy, transformative justice, and, race and anti-racism training.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
sorry, but it's interesting that you say that because I think I think a lot of people can actually identify with that because sometimes it just seems like you should be comfortable to discuss stuff that's personal to you with everyone because they may not know how to take it. Or
Yeah.
it's like you don't get to a politics discussion with people that you're not familiar with because it can go sideways. But so I understand that. Um, I have another question that's relative to the organization itself. Um, do you, is how do you like with membership? Do you have an actual like how many members? Do you have a membership body or um, do you? What does it have to? What do you have to do to actually become involved with Collage? Uh, or is
Can
it
I
just open to
piggyback
everybody?
on that? I
Are
want to
we?
piggyback on your question. Do you got to be queer spawn to be a part of Collage?
Yeah, that's what I
That's a
was.
great question.
Here you go. You put. That's how you clarify. Thank you.
That is a
You being
great
more specific.
That's a great question. I'm so glad you all asked that. So we are a by us for us organization, which means that all of our programs and services and workshops are for queer spawn. And that also means that our programs themselves are facilitated and run by queer spawn, adult queer spawn. Um, but that doesn't mean that in order to get involved with collage, you have to be queer spawn because people who aren't queer spawn, who are maybe queer parents or allies, can get involved with collage by volunteering, helping with fundraising, social media, digital development. As long as it's not directly in the programming department when you are facilitating workshops and spaces for queer spawn. And the reason that we do that is because obviously this is such a niche identity and experience, and we are literally the only national organization for queer spawn. And so because it's so niche, we think it's really important to create a safe space that is just for us because that doesn't exist elsewhere, and we can talk about things that maybe we wouldn't feel comfortable talking about if we had gay parents in the room because maybe things are hard about our experience, or if we had allies in the room because maybe they wouldn't understand what we're going through. But so yeah, it's a multifaceted answer. And to be involved, you can go to collage.org/connect. And if you are queer spawn, if anyone listening to this has LGBTQ parents and wants to connect with us, there's a form you can fill out and you will be connected with someone one-on-one. And then we can find groups for you to be in because we have several groups based on how your family was created. For example, we have people who, like Justice, were adopted, people like me whose parent came out, people who have trans and non-binary parents, people who were born through donor conception. So that's something that we talk a lot about, um, and other identities that we hold. So that's one way to get involved. And then if you are not queer spawn and you want to get involved because you love our organization and want to support us, you can email info@colage.org.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, I have a
So you
question.
mentioned,
About the pro. Oh, okay. I'm
uh,
sorry.
okay,
We
let me,
might be the same thing. Go ahead.
it might be the same. You know how our minds think.
Yeah, yeah,
Because,
yeah. It might
immediately
be.
my mind went to, it went to, okay, you talked about you have essentially created safe spaces for queer spawn. And you talked about
Yeah.
y'all have discussions. Now, do you guys have discuss? And I know everyone that's watching and will watch later is wondering this. Do y'all ever discuss your own personal orientations and the impact if your parents have any impact on it, their orientations and identities? Do you have that discussion? Is it a confusion in that space, with that area?
Actually, so yeah, we do talk about that pretty frequently, and there is a another term that collagers use. It's called second gen, or short for second generation. So it's somebody who also identifies as LGBTQ plus, IA plus, and has an LGBTQIA plus parent. Um, so I do identify as second gen. I'm bisexual, and I have lesbian moms. So there are spaces in within Collage for that kind of discussion, and I think it's one of my favorite things about the organization is that even though we are all united by having LGBTQ parents, nobody's experience, our experiences aren't a monolith. So um, we also hold spaces for like straight collagers, like who have LGBTQIA plus parents, because their narrative is really important as well. Um, so yeah, I think that we definitely, to answer your question, we definitely do have those discussions.
Yeah, and there's a lot of dynamics that go along with that, because um, some people think that I'm also second gen. I identify as non-binary and queer, and some people think that because you have queer parents, then when you come out to them or having to talk about that with them is automatically going to be super easy, and they're automatically going to be accepting. And they like for me, like I am really lucky because yeah, like a lot of queer people in this country, I was not estranged from my family when I came out to them. I was not disowned by them. They loved me, they accepted me, they listened to me. But there are unique sets of challenges that come with being second gen. And one of those challenges is that sometimes we feel like we actually don't have the space to explore our own sexuality because when we're growing up, at least for me, I tried to convince myself and everyone around me that I was straight because if I had found myself earlier, people would automatically assume that gayness is contagious, that my mom gave it to me. And so I had to constantly be like, no, my mom is gay, but I'm not. And so therefore, it's not a disease, it's not contagious, nothing is wrong with her. And it wasn't until I moved out of my conservative area where I grew up and went into a more liberal area. I went to college that I could really think about myself for the first time and like how I identified and what I was attracted to and into. So
Oh,
You
we
on
can't.
mute.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to read a comment. One of our viewers said, nice to know this organization is out here for people. I will definitely be forwarding the link. That's from
yay.
Great.
Violet
Excellent.
Smack.
Thank
Wow.
Okay. You kind of did that with that question. You did kind of take what I'm going after. Because I often have by working with IME and talking to a lot of heterosexual people and trying to get them to understand the LGBT community. I've run into several different people over the last few years talking about how, you know, gay people make other people gay, and if you have people around them and just get that another. And I know it's pure, just like ignorancy, but and I'm trying to get the understanding of. So my whole thing with the programming. So is it based upon your so everything is broken into individuals, but is it broken down by like different age groups? So like for instance, and I think this is important, like what is like the youngest a child with LGBT parents can actually get into programming and meet other people?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 8 years old. Our programming goes from ages 8 to 18. However, like Angel mentioned earlier, we do have programming for adults who have LGBTQ parents. I like to say that collage is kind of like an open door, just because you never know, your parent might come out. Some people like their parents come out when they're young. Other people, it's like, yep, we found out after our parents passed that, you know, they were queer. So, um, yeah, I think that there is space for everyone, but our programming does start at age 8.
Okay, excellent.
But
Yes,
we would
good.
love to, like in the near future, we would love to expand that down to lower ages, to younger kids. Right now, because we are such a small grassroots organization, we don't have the resources to bring anyone on board who's an early childhood professional. And we want to make sure if we're doing programming for younger youth that we're doing it really well. Yeah, but we do break up our programming into age groups. So at our in-person events, we have the 8 to 10-year-olds, the 11 to 13-year-olds, and then the high schoolers. And that's really helpful too, because although sometimes we break up in those groups based on how our families were made, if we're second gen or if we're straight, if we're a person of color, if we're white, if we are a person with a disability, or if we are a non-disabled person, we talk about all those identities. It is really nice to be with people your age, because the experience of an 8-year-old is going to be way different than the experience of a 16-year-old. And we want to make sure we have
Hmm.
appropriate programming for people.
No,
Okay.
that's
That
that's
okay, that
excellent. I
makes
think that's
sense.
very important.
Yeah, that does make sense. So I'm feeling like we only talked about one program for some reason in my mind. Could you guys kind of tell us the different types of programs? I know I saw something on there, a queer project or something like that, queer spawn project or something. Could you share more information about the different types of programs people can get into? Watch this video, they'll say, okay, well, you know what, that one may not fit me, but this one does. I want to get in this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So Queer Spawn Resource Project is probably what you saw on our website. That's like on our resources page, and Queer Spawn Resource Project is one of our sister organizations that specifically just has resources, books, movies, media that are by or about queer spawn, which is an awesome resource. So you can find a link to their website on our resources page. And we have other resources too. We have a guide that people with trans parents wrote for other people with trans parents. And we have a guide for people who were donor conceived and queer spawn for other people who are donor conceived and queer spawn. So those are some really great resources to check out for sure. But in terms of our programming, we have both virtual and in-person programming. So our virtual programming is year round, and we have chats, bi-monthly chats for retro collagers. So if you were born pre-1980 and have LGBTQ parents, we have a very robust group for you. Um,
Wow.
and that's actually really cool, because people who were born pre-1980 usually have gay parents who were living through the AIDS epidemic, and that is a totally different experience than what I have and what Justice has. And then we have just adult collagers, anyone 18 plus. And we have people with trans and non-binary parents. That's another bi-monthly chat. But in terms of our in-person programming, we have two big events. So the first one is our biggest event of the year is Family Week. It's the largest gathering of LGBTQ families in the world, and we have been co-hosts there for 29 years. It's in Provincetown, Massachusetts, at the tip of Cape Cod, like a very gay-friendly town. And that's where Justice and I met as kids. That's where we went to programming as kids.
Wow.
It's at the end of July every year. And It's a great event. It's so magical. It's so amazing. But it also is very geographically isolated. It's hard to get there. It's all the way at the tip of Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Not everyone from the US can get there. And it's also very expensive and therefore pretty wealthy and white. And so we made an intentional decision over the past couple of years to try to expand our in-person programming to other parts of the US where Queer Spawn could access it, where they might have not been to otherwise. And because there's an estimated 6 million queer spawn across the US. And, we're only
Wow.
reaching like a couple thousand people. And we really want to expand that. So we are so excited that we're doing our inaugural family weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, in October 6th to 8th. And registration will launch for that in a couple months. And this event it's a multiracial event, but we have a specific focus on families of color, LGBTQ families of color, because those are demographics that we haven't been able to serve as much as we've wanted to in the past. And at these in-person workshops, in-person programs, Family Week and Family Weekends, which again we hope to expand even further across the U.S. We do workshops about anti-bullying, anti-racism, class, privilege. Conflict resolution. We also do creative workshops. So youth can do theater, drag, writing. They
Wow.
can do visual art, and then they get to like present it to their families at the end of our event.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Wow. And that's October, I think October 6th to 8th in Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all this information is actually on your website also.
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. I'm just, I know it is. We just reiterating because for the audience, so they can, because that might be something that our followers may be truly interested in. Because it's always a good time to go to Atlanta.
Listen, you can't go because you don't have queer spawn, but
Oh,
I
that's
can go.
that could, well, that's yeah. There you go.
Yeah, Piers, you should come.
No, seriously, like,
I can bring my queer spawn.
Yeah.
yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
goodness, this is great information. And you
It's
know what? It's
great
funny because
information.
Spotlight supposed to be 30 minutes, but we over the 30-minute mark. But that's fine. This is great. I really think the audience is really going to benefit from it when they, actually tune in. This is a great organization. Um, I'm kind of mad that I didn't think of it, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
One thing I wanted to add really quickly about Atlanta Family Weekends is that we are doing programming for people of all ages. So it's not just I mean, normally our programming is for 8 to 18, but we are encouraging everyone to come to Atlanta Family Weekend.
And that's because we have really wonderful partner organizations that we're working with. One of them is XHood, and you can find their information at parentxhood.com, and they are specifically for Black LGBTQ parents. And so they do a Pride Summit every year. But they don't have programming for youth. So we thought it was a natural partnership because they can do programming for the parents while we do programming for the youth. And then the other organization is Forward Together. They're a national organization, but they're based in the Bay Area. And they do a lot of like reproductive justice work and queer family building work. And so they're going to be we're partnering with them to host Atlanta Family Weekend. And we have, programs and events and even childcare for the youth that are 0 to 7 years old.
Wow, wow, excellent. That's wonderful.
I think so. You know what I'm wondering in the future? I mean, just a thought. The future of collage, will it include sensitivity training for parents that aren't LGBTQ?
Oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. We,
Hmm.
I mean, I would be down to think about anything. Justice and I just went to the Rainbow Families Conference in DC on Saturday, which is the DC LGBTQ family organization. And we did a workshop for they were LGBTQ parents, but we did a workshop for parents, which we don't normally do. Normally we do workshops just for queer spawn, like I said earlier. But it was awesome because they had questions about what, advice, like, what should I do to best raise my kid, my queer spawn? Like, what are the yeses? What are the nos? Like, asking those types of questions. And it was really helpful because that will help the lives of queer spawn. But I haven't considered doing trainings for straight parents, and that could be interesting.
That's good. Yeah. I actually hadn't considered that either, but if straight parents have gay children all the time, so I guess it could be something that we could consider. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like a bridge program. I think, that would help a lot. It will help a lot.
Yeah, if we can find a partner organization who focuses on, like PFLAG, for example, is like people say we're the inverse of PFLAG because they focus on, youth with straight LGBTQ youth with straight parents and what their family dynamics are, and we're like the inverse of that. So maybe there's a partnership there where we could do something.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think whatever we do to bring more people into the tent to have more better understanding is important because I think the key point of just education and just the familiarity with just I don't like to use the term normal because what is normal? But to make every just a family dynamic just seem just like it's a family dynamic. It's just to the point where as though at a certain point, when you have it was a time that it was just seemed inconceivable to have mixed race parents from different races, and
Yeah.
now it's just like, oh, so we need to get to the point where as though every family dynamic is just gratified as just like my key factor is just make good people, raise good people. So I
Yes.
think, and what I'm really impressed is like you guys are like young, just like really just taking the forefront, and like I'm really impressed with that because it just seems like I, you know, some people wouldn't even be like they were too busy worrying about something else other than the bigger picture of society and other people. So like
Yeah.
I really hope somebody else that if somebody that's out there that's that's not part of your organization want to get involved, especially the younger people, because
Yeah.
this is excellent.
I think the
It
fact that
really,
we're young leaders is a testament to Collage, though, because we have a youth leadership track, and Justice and I both participated in it to varying degrees, and we were volunteers before we came into these positions for years. And I know a lot of people have followed that path and will continue to follow that path, and that's just what Collage is. We support young people to be leaders in our communities.
Yep.
All
excellent.
right. So
Yes.
I love the organization, obviously, but now let's get into the fun stuff. Queer Spawn viewpoints, right? There's so much stuff going on in the world with us LGBTQ plus people. From your perspective, what are your thoughts about this whole drag queen stuff, ban the drag queens? You're a queer spawn, and the premise is let's protect the children. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's absolutely disgusting that the notion behind trying to ban something like drag and just whether it be gender affirming care or diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think it's all just a strategic attempt to silence people who aren't the same as you out of fear and out of misunderstanding. And to me, that's intentional ignorance, and I don't respect that at all. I also don't think that they're going to be successful. Like, I think that, yes, they may have temporary success, and, it's very public what they're doing now, but I'm also reading a lot of articles that are saying that, it's people are starting to push back because it's not helping anybody except a very select number of people. Like it's helping white rich heterosexual conservatives. That's those are the only people that are benefiting from it. Even if you are conservative and happen to be, LGBTQ or, a woman, like or identify as a woman, like it is still not benefiting you in the same way as it is white heterosexual males. So I think people, are going to eventually realize, sooner rather than later, that it's not conducive, and it's actually going to be a lot harder to restrict everybody's rights. And because they use intentionally vague language, a lot of the things that they're trying to use to target LGBTQ people will also apply to them. So it's not going to work.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I echo Justice's points, and I also think it's really sad that people are trying to ban drag. And like I mentioned kind of briefly, is in Collage we do like a variety show where we have youth pick a creative thing that they want to work on and then present it. And drag is one that we've done for years. I did drag when I was in high school. Like it's so fun. It's so fun to be able to um, expand and play with your gender and have it be fluid in a spectrum and it's something that we really support in Collage, and personally I support. Obviously I'm non-binary so but I think that like the narrative of protecting children is silly, because what really would be protecting children is having more legislation around guns. Like that's literally killing children. Drag is not killing anyone or hurting anyone.
Very good point.
All right. Good points.
Excellent point. Um. Oh no, because I don't want to get into the whole political thing because then we'll be here for another hour and a half because I have so many qualms with uh, many of the legislation that's been put against the LGBT community in the last 6 months. And I mean, honestly, I spoke to Paris about this, and it's no, this is not a question, but I know for a fact that this, this is just a statement. It's only being done because they're picking on people that they want to pick on. You can't pick on women anymore. You can't pick on people's race. They needed a other, and the other is, you know, the LGBT community, especially trans people, and then we talking about affirm. They're literally killing people by passing laws to get away to stop, healthcare for affirming healthcare for teenagers and people that are trying to transition. So I know that's probably something that your organization has to deal with because you have a trans section, so you already know. But on that point though, are do does your organization actually? I understand it's basically a support system, but do you get into those quote unquote political fights? Or I know a lot of times nonprofits are not allowed, but do you try to talk to people in your membership body and or others and try to know protect them because I mean people these things are going on all across the country and you may have people that's dealing with these situations, especially if you have anybody in Florida or Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we do. I know that we have taken, especially like in the past year, we've done a considerable amount of work in the legislative section and with policy. We do have a legislative tracker. We're
Okay.
also, our executive director, Jordan Budd, is really heavily involved with a lot of different political bodies across the United States. And Jordan is actually
Ooh.
from Florida. So he literally
Ooh.
started his political
Ooh.
career like in Florida. So he has ears and eyes everywhere and
He's
is
he's at ground zero.
exactly really committed to making sure that he's aware of what's going on, he's abreast, and that we're actively playing a role in what is going on and that our narrative is being shared. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that also during programming, just because it is something that affects our families so directly, it does come up. Like, and it may not be the center of what we talk about, but it does come up in conversation. And we do try to leave space for people to share their emotions and their feelings and their thoughts about it, because it has a huge effect on people's mental health. We've seen it across the country. So, yeah, we do.
Excellent. Excellent.
Great, great, great,
Yeah.
great, great. Oh my God. This is an awesome, again, awesome, awesome organization. People that are watching now, I encourage you to go to the website, collage.org. Even if you aren't queer spawn, or you're just a cisgender children, just go on there, because you can probably pass this information on. Like, I know we all know someone that could benefit from it.
Yeah.
Share,
Yeah.
share, share, share. A lot of times people need these types of resources. You might be the person that saves the family, you might save
Yeah.
a person. And on to that point, y'all have awesome programming. Do you have anything for the queer spawn that aren't adjusting, where it is just too difficult? They may even be on that verge of, I just can't take it. I might run away. I might even consider suicide. Do you have something like that for those children that aren't adjusting?
Yeah. Well, so there's lots of dynamics to this. I mean, for some people whose parents come out, for example, when they're in middle school or high school, even if they are accepting themselves, it can be really jarring for them, and it can be a huge transition to get used to. And we really like to keep our door open to everyone, even if you're not how Justice and I are, like, yes, LGBTQ rights every day. Like, even if you're like, whoa, I'm having a hard time with this. This is really hard. Like, we want to be able to welcome everyone in, regardless of their current viewpoint, because their lives matter, and we want to provide them with a support system that's safe. Um, and then in terms of mental health and um, how hard it is, especially just for young people right now. I know there's been studies coming out, like, very frequently about the mental health epidemic amongst young people, and how serious it is, and how many lives it's taken. And I would say one thing that we're really trying to work towards, but again is a resource problem, is being able to do a survey for queer spawn mental health, like a national survey that is just about mental health for people who have LGBTQ plus parents, because we only have anecdotal evidence about how hard it can be growing up in this homophobic and transphobic society. But we need those numbers in order to affect legislation, create more programs around it. I will say that the one thing that we have now that gives me a lot of hope in our organization is we have a thing in our organization called the Transformative Justice Committee. And this basically is a committee that is dedicated to resolving harm and conflict that occurs within our community, because we recognize that conflict and harm is a natural part of life. Every human being is capable of hurting someone. And in any community, you're going to have these problems that come up. So we have this committee that is there to support people both emotionally and with accountability processes, conflict resolution. And they really are, I think, the bedrock in our organization that thinks about um, all the nuances of people and the hard things they're going through, and mental illness. And we've been working on resources to give to our fellow queer spawn who are dealing with these really hard things and are on the edge, as you mentioned, Pierce. So it's very serious to us, but again, it's we're doing what we can as a small organization, and really, that personally, that's where, like, I am like, this is the number one area I want to expand into right now, because I know how how much of a pinnacle we're at right now in society.
For you guys that was listening, I meant cisgender heterosexual people when I was asking the question. But thank you, and I do hope that Collage does create that space, because I can see you guys doing so much. I can see, I just see you doing so much in the future, 10 years from now, when I'm on a cane or in a wheelchair. I
Oh
want to go
God.
on and I'm gonna look up collage and I'm gonna say, "Oh my God, they doing all this stuff." Yes, I can see so much. I really can. Dion, do you have another question? And then we're gonna try to wrap it up because we've been holding them hostage for almost an hour.
Yeah, yeah. It's been no, it's been an excellent conversation. No, I was just jotting down a couple things. I would like them to reiterate what they have coming up. So if somebody didn't, the event in Atlanta and a couple things and everything about their information. So you just nail that on home. And I like to thank you guys for coming on because I have I've learned a lot, and I'm really interested, and I can actually pass. I have somebody that I know I can connect uh with your organization personally, and that's really good because um but I do think one of the things that like Pearson said really important is um in the future trying to connect with some like like you said dealing with P flags because I know so many I know four parents that have you know queer children and they come to me asking questions because I'm in this organization and I'm like I'm not really qualified for it but I and like if but they need to probably connect with somebody that has that's other queer children or that's dealing with that or something but I'm going to push your information along to some friends of mine that really need it. So I thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for sharing our information. That's what we want, and I'm glad you're both supporting that because we want more people to find out about us.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you all
So
so much for having us on.
now I do have you guys. Is it anything else you like to share about collage that hasn't already been shared?
I will say one thing that kind of came to me later is we were talking earlier about like the unique challenges that queer spawn face. Sometimes, queer spawn, we have LGBTQIA plus parents and they are like, I think so. I think a lot of the times that the assumption is that they are accepting. And for the most part, they are. But there are situations where people with LGBTQIA plus parents don't want their kids to be LGBTQIA plus because of what they faced when they were coming out and growing up. And I think that that's a really prevalent challenge that doesn't necessarily get talked about a lot, but that we see in collage spaces semi frequently. Uh, just because it's again the assumption is that if you have an LGBTQIA parent, they're always going to be accepting of you whether you're straight or LGBTQIA plus, and that's not always the case. So we have support for those people as well.
Excellent.
Okay.
I think the last thing that I would want to add is just when people find us, the common um, feeling is that they thought they were alone and they didn't know there was anyone else that had family structures like us.
Mhm.
And I just want to say to anyone watching, if you have an LGBTQ plus parent, you are not alone. And there's a vibrant community with our arms open, ready to embrace you. So just keep that in your minds and hearts.
Yep, 2 to 3 thousand people.
Wow. Wow. Well, that
Excellent.
is our show. I am so glad you guys joined us. I'm sorry we held
Thank
you hostage 3 minutes, but hey, when it's good
Well,
information, it's good, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
So
thank
excellent.
you.
Excellent.
hopefully you guys will join us again. Feel free to come back and share any updates with Collage,
Yes,
any
absolutely.
events, anything. also share your advertisement so we can put it on our social media and release it on our app. Um, I'm thankful for the organization. I thank you guys for joining us. Um, Dion, you got any final words?
I know, but my final words is this is what I've perceived Spotlight to be when we discussed it when we in its infancy, to have organizations like this that were outside of our little regional area, and just this is exactly the shows that I wanted us to do. So I thank y'all for that.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for having
So
us.
All right.
everyone, you're welcome. All right. So we're gonna wrap it up, y'all. Join us for the next spotlight. I'm not sure who's gonna be on at this moment because my brain is fried. So in love with collage, I can't even think about anything else. So y'all have a great rest of y'all week. Join us. You know, Spotlight is a bi-weekly show. So what is that? June
2 weeks from
the
now. So enjoy your Memorial Day next weekend. Next week.
Yeah.
Yes, I often have to be the calendar person for Paris. Next week is
yes.
Memorial Day. That's why we didn't. We're not going to have a spotlight. That's why we did. So it'll be June the 5th. The next
Join
show
us
will be
June
June the
5th.
5th, and it'll be right after our meet seminar. So we'll be coming off of that.
All right. So good night, everyone. Good night. Thank y'all
Good
for
night.
joining us again. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye,
Good
thank
night.
you.